Welcome. How do you practice speaking? How do you practice speaking live? English Bookish English today decided to do the explain this question. Our question: how do you practice speaking English? On my live shows, I get a lot of questions about practicing English. Hey Ariel, how do I practice English in my country? I have no one to talk to. I'm from... And they tell me their country. They say, how do I practice English? Hi, how do I practice English? A lot of people seem stressed about this, right? Kind of upset about it even, like they have nobody to practice English with. That's why they can't speak well. They have this very strong belief that they must have someone to talk to every day, or often, or their English will not improve, that they will never become fluent because they have no one to talk to. First, let me welcome everybody to my channel, Bookish English. So, welcome everybody, and lots of people saying hello. And hello to you. Lots of different countries as always. I will talk about our topic first, then I will come to some of your questions and comments. So YouTube watchers, questions and comments, please be patient. I'll be back to you soon. So let's go back to this thought. The first thing is, I think too many people focus on this question of talk to somebody, talk to somebody, talk to somebody. And that's not really what they need. What they mostly need is listening, listening, listening. It's the foundation. You probably need at least about 6 months of very intensive listening where you're focusing just on listening 2 or more hours per day, every single day. Listening, listening, listening. Getting a huge amount of listening first. This is the foundation, and most people never get this in school. You don't get it in school. School is a lot of reading, typically. You may do some little exercises, little activities in the class where you chat a little bit, but you usually get very little listening, surprisingly, in school classes. And so that's the number one thing you're missing, because your brain needs lots of that listening first before you really get comfortable with the language. And that's why you really should focus on that first. That's always going to be your foundation. Lots and lots and lots of listening. Here's the good news. You can listen from anywhere alone. You don't need an American to talk to. You don't need a British person to talk to. You don't need anyone to talk to. All you need is your little phone or MP3 player, iPod, whatever, some headphones or not, some speakers, your computer, whatever, and just play your audios every day. You can do that anywhere. You can do that while you're driving your car. You can do that while you're on a train or a bus. You can do that at home while you're cooking dinner. You can do that anywhere at any time in any country. That's great news. So that's the main thing to focus on. That will actually help your speaking a lot. A lot. We have on my Twitter, it's a great example of this. We have Mehdi, for example, one of our superstar members. Now he's in Iran. He doesn't have anybody to talk to, yet he has achieved a very high level of English. How did he do it? Mostly listening. Listening, 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 listening. That's the first big thing he'll tell you. Lots of repetition. He tells everybody this because people ask him questions all the time on Twitter, and this is his advice all the time. It's the same as my advice. Lots and lots and lots and lots of listening every day, and repeat the same audios many times. Deep learning, repetition. This is going to help your speaking so much. And of course, it helps your listening too. And again, the great thing about it, you can do it all alone anywhere in the world. No need to stress. Now let's say you do this. You do the 6 months. Your listening improves a lot. Your speaking starts to improve even. But you're like, I want to practice speaking more. I want to work on my pronunciation. I want to become more fluent. What can you do? You have no one to talk to. You can talk to yourself. You can talk to yourself. Matey does this. I know because I've seen him mention it on Twitter. And a lot of our superstar members who've been very, very successful do this also, where they just practice alone in a room. They'll just have, imaginary conversations. They'll give speeches just alone in a room. You could talk to a mirror if you want to, like giving a speech, and that's just practicing talking. You can just talk and talk and talk and talk, like I'm right now talking to the camera, right? Nobody's talking back to me. I'm just talking to the camera. I'm getting a huge amount of practice, right? Of course, I'm a native speaker. I don't need to practice English, but this helps me a lot with practicing public speaking because I do this so much. Talking to a camera for my podcast, or talking even just to a microphone for my audio podcast, because I do that almost every day. Public speaking is very easy for me now because I practice it constantly. It's the same thing for you. You can do this at home. Again, you could record yourself with a camera or with a microphone, like on your computer or your phone. You could listen to it if you wanted to, so you could hear your own mistakes or hear your own pronunciation. Or you don't even have to record it. You can just talk. You just walk around your room speaking English. Talk about the weather. Talk about how you're feeling. Talk about what you did yesterday. Talk about what you want to do tomorrow. Just talk and talk and talk and talk every day just to yourself. This will give you a lot of practice. Again, you can do it alone anywhere, any country, anywhere, all by yourself. Another thing you can do, you can combine these two things, the listening and the speaking. Do this several ways. This is what my pronunciation course does. So in the pronunciation course, what you do is you listen to me and then you imitate me. So you get some listening, you're hearing me speak, and then you're pausing. And then later, you're not even pausing, but in the beginning you pause and then you try to imitate me. So you try to speak exactly like me. And in this way, you'll be practicing your pronunciation. This also helps your fluency, though. It also helps the easiness of speaking so the words come out faster and more easily. You can do this with any audio. And then there's the shadowing technique I described, or tracking as I call it, which is where you're listening and speaking. Listening and speaking. Listening and speaking with no pausing at all. You're doing it at the same time, which is a little difficult in the beginning, but eventually you can do it. And again, you can do this all alone by yourself, anywhere, at any time. And many of our members in many different countries have only done these things and become fluent, excellent speakers all by themselves, all alone, without a friend who speaks English, without any conversation websites, without anything, only themselves. And then finally, they test themselves. Maybe they travel. Maybe they have a chat with somebody online and they do very well. So you can train and practice speaking all by yourself using all of these different methods, starting with intensive, repetitive listening. That's the foundation. Do that at least 6 months. Longer is great. You never really stop doing that, but you can focus on only doing that for about 6 months. And then after that, you're ready to speak. You can do all these other activities that I just suggested alone. And combining all these things together, you do all these things, a couple hours a day, your speaking is going to improve a lot. And you have no need to get stressed out about, I can't find someone to speak to. Okay, there's just relax. Just relax. You're going to be fine. You'll be fine. You can do it yourself wherever you are right now in the world. All right. My Twitter, by the way, is Ariel. That's my name. Let's put that on the screen. If you're watching, you can see. If you're just listening, it's Ariel. Ariel is my Twitter. That's where you ask me questions. That's where you communicate with me directly. Twitter's basically like a public text chat. That's basically what it is. Pretty simple. Ariel. All right, let's go to the comments and questions now. So lots of people saying hello from lots of different countries, so hello. And hola, which is hello in Spanish. And then we've got lots of people just suggesting all the different things you can listen to. Audiobooks, songs, movies, game shows, TV, podcasts, on and on and on. It's endless. There's so much now. You're so lucky because number one, you have the internet, okay? And number two, English has the most on the internet. So for English, there's so much English listening. And if you want courses, you can get my courses at my channel, where you're really getting the specific training. And then there's just tons of other stuff out there. So, tons of meaning a lot of other things out there. So there's plenty. All right, this is a nice quote, this is a nice comment, and it's correct. Della says, I lack the ability of speaking. I think it's a talent. Some of us are born to be fluent speakers or, kind of eloquent. Eloquent is a word I'll explain in a minute. Even if we speak our own language, some people have a special talent. I agree and disagree. I agree some people do have a talent. They seem to be naturals, right? Some people, from a fairly young age, just, they have that gift, that ability to just talk. They're really good talkers in their own language, and then they can do it in any other language they learn. They also can do it. And it's also true that some people, don't have that. And so naturally, we're a little shy, naturally a little difficult to talk and have conversations. This word is really not fluency, it's kind of fluency. But if it's your own language, we might say eloquent. Eloquent means it's the ability to communicate well through speaking. However, I agree with that part. You're right about that. Of course, you're right. We all can see this. I disagree that it's a special talent only because you can develop it. It is a skill, and you can develop this skill with practice. I have. So, I'm one of those people. Like when I've told this story many times. When I started doing public speaking, I was really shy and nervous. I was really bad at it. Very, very bad. It took me several years to get better, and it took me many, many years to get very good. So even in our own languages, this is true. But with practice, you will get better. And as I said, the best practice of all, the thing that really improved my speaking ability in my own language, public speaking, was doing exactly what I'm doing now, which is, practicing by talking to cameras and talking to microphones. And then, of course, I did give speeches to groups too. So you can improve by practicing alone. All alone, you can do it. All right, let's see. All right. So Yusuf has a common problem question. And this problem also happens with your own language. I can speak easily in my mind and possibly even alone, but when it comes to speaking in front of other people, I can't remember some words and I forget what I will say. So, what's your advice? Okay, so yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. This is a common problem for public speaking, and it can be a problem with foreign language speaking also. I had this problem in Spanish, right? I could, by myself, actually talk to myself pretty well. I was doing the shadowing or tracking technique when I was traveling in Spain. But when I got in front of people, then this kind of emotion, like nervousness, would come up, and my speaking would be much, much worse. And it's also a common problem with public speaking. So in my own language, right, in the beginning, for quite a long time, I would feel at home. I could practice, and, I could speak, of course, speak English perfectly fine. But if I was standing in front of a group of people, suddenly, like my brain would turn off, and I couldn't remember words, couldn't remember my topics, I'd forget a lot of stuff. So it's just an emotional issue, right? It's caused by nervousness, is what it's caused by. And so you have to train yourself to overcome the nervousness. It's not a language problem. It has nothing to do with your language ability. It's all, it's that nervousness, that emotional, part, the fear. The adrenaline is what causes it. Adrenaline is the chemical your body releases when you're nervous or fearful or sometimes excited even. So you have to train yourself to function with the adrenaline. You have to get used to the situation. So you do it a lot. So then it becomes less fearful. So both of those things. Check my YouTube channel because I do have some videos about public speaking, and they will also help you just with normal English speaking. But a few things you do is, first, you practice getting yourself very excited, and you practice speaking while you're in that excited state, that it's feeling excited. This will actually help get you more used to speaking when your heart's pumping, when you're feeling some of those emotions. And you can do some other kinds of practices as well. And then the other thing is just practice, just doing it a lot, because each time you do it, you get a little less nervous. So, like for public speaking, your first speech will probably be the most nervous. It will be the most, fearful. And then, if you give 100 speeches, by number 100, you probably will feel much less nervous. So just the number of times will start to reduce the fear quite a lot. And anyone can do that. All right, so Emmanuel, this is a good question. Good to see you again, by the way. Also. Yes, so basically, I finished all your lessons. Good for you. Great. I know all the words on all the meanings, so that's great. But when it's time to speak, so similar question to the last one. When it's time to speak, I feel overwhelmed by fear. I get nervous. I forget a lot of the new words suddenly. So again, it's an emotional issue, right? It's not. When you're calm and relaxed, you know everything. And then when it's time to speak in front of people or in a real situation, suddenly you become nervous. And then that stops, your brain from working so well. So again, I would recommend, like when the public speaking part, I'll mention things. It seems crazy, but where you jump around, you jump up and down a lot, you can use music to get yourself excited. So it's a positive feeling, but you also get yourself so you're kind of actually breathing a little bit heavy and your heart's pumping boom, 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 because this is physically, in terms of your body, that's very similar to feeling nervous or afraid, right? When you're nervous or afraid, your heart beats faster. Sometimes you can even breathe a little bit heavier, more heavily. So if you jump, you can kind of pretend or kind of create a similar feeling physically in your body by just, jumping up and down a lot, get your heart going, and then get yourself breathing a little heavy. And then practice speaking English just alone, like practice doing a speech or something like that. You could practice telling one of the mini stories, right? Retelling it yourself. Anything, really. But you do it while you're breathing a little heavy, while your heart's beating a little bit, so you get used to functioning. You get used to thinking in English while your body is having this reaction. You get used to speaking English while your body's having this reaction. This will start to train you to speak English and think in English when your heart rate is up, when your muscles are a little more tight, right? When you're breathing a little heavier, which are all the same things that happen when you feel nervous. So it's kind of a little physical trick you can use, and you can use this exact same trick for public speaking. And this was the trick I use. I still use it sometimes. For a long time before I would give a speech, same problem, right? My muscles would get tight, especially my neck and throat. My heart would start beating faster, and I'd start breathing heavier. And then this would cause my brain to start turning off, right? So I started to create this, and then I would practice doing my speech. So I would jump around, breathing heavy, heart beating, and then I would practice my speech. And I would do this again and again and again, like for a week or 2 weeks before my speech. So I got used to speaking well, even when my heart was beating fast, even when I was breathing heavy, even when I felt a little tired, right? When all these kind of physical things were happening, it helped so much. And then I started learning how to do was change that fear, change that nervousness into more of a feeling of excitement and energy, into more of a positive feeling. So then it started to help my speaking, so you can do exactly that same thing. Good luck. Here's a question, a time question from Evil. Is it true that most of us need 6 years to become fluent after working hard each day? No, I don't think so. I just recently did a show about this thing, this question of time, So it's fairly long because I talk about this in quite a lot of detail, because we have a few problems when people ask questions like this. Number 1, what is fluent or fluency? People have very different ideas about this word, right? Some people think it's, almost perfect, like a native speaker. And then others will say fluent basically just means, You can speak well about basic topics. I say it's you can speak well, communicate well, fairly easily about normal conversational topics. No special topics with special vocab, but sort of the normal everyday topics. And the other question is time. When we say people, we often talk about years and months, but really we should talk about hours, because if you listen to English 10 hours per day, that's a big difference compared to another person who listens only 1 hour per day. Okay, so the first person will improve 10 times faster. So will they both be the same after 1 year? No, they'll be very, very, very different. So it's really the number of hours that's important rather than the number of months or years. So with all that in mind, you're saying working very hard each day. So working very hard each day, I would say, is something like, let's say, 3 to 4 hours a day of English. Let's say 3 to 4 hours would be very hard. Hard, solid every day. What I recommend is 2 hours a day at least. Let's say you're doing 4 hours a day of English. Will you need 6 years to become fluent? No, it should be much faster than that. Much faster. 4 hours a day, I don't know, it depends on everyone's a little different. Depends on what your first language is, how much English you have already. But I would say, since you're listening to me now and understand me now already, you're already intermediate level at least. I would say just a year, maybe a year you should be fine. Maybe 1 or 2 years, maybe less than that. So I would say, 6 years? No, I don't think so. Now, to become native speaker level, like to speak almost exactly like an American or a British person, then maybe you're looking at 6 years or something like that. But again, maybe less. It just depends on how much you're practicing every day. But I'd say my general answer would be much less than 6 years. This is one of the great things about independent learning. It's much faster than school. People, we sort of get confused because in school, people will study English for 10 years, and then they still can't communicate well. They can hardly speak at all after 10 years, and we think, well, this is crazy. Why? We think that's normal, but that's just because the school methods are so terrible, right? There's so much time wasted. Oh, and perfect. Allie has a question just connected to what I was just saying. Good morning. I have to wonder. I've been in an ESL class, that's English as a second language, in college, and I'm never improving. I've been in class for 1 year, just losing time. Can you explain why the school versus online learning is different? Thank you. There are many, 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 many differences. Number 1, in the school, you're sitting there, you're passive. You're not the boss. With online learning, you're the boss. You choose. You choose what you listen to. If you like me, you listen to me. But if you don't like me, if you think I'm boring, that's okay. Go find someone else. Go find something else. I mean, that's the cool thing. So right away, you're in charge. You're the boss. You decide on what you listen to. So immediately, you're more interested just emotionally and mentally. You're more awake. You're focused more. It's already better just because of that. That's a big, 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 big part of it. When you go to a class, you don't decide. The teacher decides everything. There's no choice, really. It's you go and you do what the class is doing that day, and that's all you do. So the second thing, they use textbooks. You're typically focused on grammar, trying to memorize different grammar rules. You're typically trying to memorize vocabulary lists. None of these methods work very well, so you're just wasting huge amounts of time. With online learning, at least, I can't say all online learning, but with Bookish English for sure, you're doing huge amounts of listening. You're finally getting a lot of listening every day. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, or more of real English every single day. Man, it's gonna improve. So your listening ability is gonna improve a lot. If you start reading books, especially audiobooks, you're gonna grow your vocabulary very quickly. And again, it's all more interesting. It's all so much more interesting than a textbook or than some class activity. So, oh yeah, I recommend you try it. I always just say, try it for 6 months. You don't have to believe me or anyone else. Just do an experiment. You've tried ESL class for a year, clearly, and getting no results, nothing. So just compare. Try this for 6 months. Try Bookish English for 6 months. Just 6 months. Do it every day, 2 hours a day, and after 6 months, see the result. Do you improve? Did you do better than in the classroom? I think you will. Here's the question. Is age important for learning languages? No, not really. No. There's only one area where it can make a difference, which is pronunciation for some reason. But other than that, it does not matter at all. One of my favorite, super language learners is Steve Kaufman, who's now in his 70s, I believe, and speaks, I can't remember how many languages he speaks because he keeps learning them, so I'm losing my count. I think the last time I heard, this was a couple years ago, he was up to 15 languages, still learning new languages in his 70s, learned several languages in his 60s, in his 50s. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Now, there's some research that shows that for, kind of perfect native pronunciation, it does help to start when you're a child. That's the one advantage the kids really have. The big advantage they really have is that they very easily get that perfect pronunciation when they're very small. And when you're an adult, to get that same perfect pronunciation, you have to work quite hard compared to the children. But otherwise, you can learn at any age. We have Bookish English members of all different ages, from young to older. So it doesn't matter. Okay, let's see. I love when you imitate Clint Eastwood. I wish I was good at it. I'm not good at it, though. I can't do I need to practice doing Clint Eastwood because I like him. But I can't do I'm not good at imitations of people. At least nobody you guys would know. All right. Okay, lots of people just saying thank you, so thank you back. Yes, indeed. All right, so here's a pronunciation question. Okay, long one. I have this problem. I can respond to people quickly and confidently, but my pronunciation is so bad, and then when I focus on my pronunciation, I lose my fluency. I respond so slowly. Gotcha. Now, I don't want to speak, just want to focus on my pronunciation, but that's wrong too. Okay, so, you got to relax. This is a normal thing. This is normal for any skill, by the way. Any skill. I'll give you an example, not even language, it's just jujitsu. Okay, so in jujitsu, there are lots of techniques. Jujitsu is kind of like wrestling, Japanese Brazilian wrestling. And anyway, there are techniques, and the techniques have several different parts. Okay, so let's say there's one technique to escape. Someone's on top of you and you want to escape. Well, you have to do something with your legs and you have to do something with your arms. Okay, so both of your legs have a technique to do. They must do something, and both arms have to do something. So it's very common for me and for all learners when you learn a new technique in jiu-jitsu that if you focus on your legs, you forget your arms. So I'll do the leg technique correctly, but then I forget the arm technique. And so it doesn't work. And I'm like, can't escape. Why? And then the teacher will say, well, you didn't do your arms. Oh, yeah, right, okay. And so then go back and kind of fighting against somebody, right? And you know it's fighting, it's happening very fast, just like in a conversation, right? Everything's happening fast. There's no time to carefully think about everything. You have to do it very, very quickly because the other guy is trying to win. So there's really no time to think carefully. So do it again, and this time I'll focus, arms, 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 arms. Grab his arms. So boom, the situation happens again, and I'll do the arm technique correctly, and it won't work again. And then I'm like, why not? And then after, I'll ask my instructor, oh, this time you forgot your legs, right? Right. So this is kind of normal. When there are maybe 2 or 3 different skills to perform at the same time, it's normal for a while, it takes a while. And so in the beginning for a while, sometimes for a long while, when you focus on one, you forget the other part. So you start improving one area, like pronunciation, and then you kind of forget your fluency. Your fluency gets worse suddenly, and then Then you focus back on your fluency, and then your pronunciation drops. You feel like you're going crazy. So, I understand this. This happens to me in jiu-jitsu all the time, and I get really frustrated because I feel like, I can never do them all. Okay, but eventually, what happens? Eventually, you focus on one, you get better, then you switch to the other one. You improve that one, and then the first one goes down. Oh, then you go back to the first one, right? And then, eventually, you start getting where your brain can think of both at the same time. Finally, sometimes it happens suddenly, sometimes gradually, but you'll find that your brain will begin to do both at the same time, and you'll be able finally to do both. Right? So like in the first escape technique I learned in jiu-jitsu, now, finally, it's natural. Really, I don't need to think at all to do it. The leg part and the arm part, they're both natural because I have done them many, 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 many times. But it took a while, right? For a long time, I would forget one or forget the other. And so, this is probably going to happen with you. I know it's frustrating, but you just have to relax and just kind of laugh about it and accept it because it's just normal for it to happen. And I think your name is Vietnamese. So English pronunciation is challenging for most Vietnamese speakers. So you're just going to have to try to be relaxed about it and even just laugh about it, okay? Sometimes focus on your pronunciation, and when you focus on pronunciation, don't get stressed about your fluency. Sometimes, when you focus on fluency, Don't get too stressed about your pronunciation. Just be patient, and gradually you'll find that those both start coming together. You'll improve both separately first, and then finally, you'll be able to combine them together. So good luck to you. It will happen, I promise you. Okay, I'm gonna go backwards here. So you mean pronunciation can be acquired by wrestling? Ah, yeah, that's right. That's Jiu-Jitsu English. Very funny. Is your course good for people preparing for IELTS? Yes and no. It will help your speaking and your listening, which will help your IELTS. But my courses are not specifically designed for any test. So if you're looking to improve your general overall speaking and listening ability, absolutely yes. Of course, that will help for those sections of TOEFL or IELTS. But I do not specifically teach just for one test, because I want the real test to be the real world, real life. I want you to succeed in the real world. I've been following you since 2008, says Muhammad. Wow, that's a long time. That's almost to the beginning. All right, thank you. You're really doing a great job, I hope. Thank you, Ariel. You are welcome. Are you American or English? This is our comedian, but a serious question. I am American. Okay, this is an interesting question. Okay, so, hi from Sweden. I have a question. The question is, can I write when I listen to some movie? How I can't speak with people. How can I improve my speaking? Okay, so for movies, I have another quite long video about a movie technique. The short answer is, with movies, you can watch them and play maybe 5 minutes, and then rewind and then pause after each sentence. You could use the subtitles if you want, learn the new phrases, learn the new words. You could even go back again, pause after each sentence, and imitate the actors, imitate their speaking. So there's a lot of ways you can use movies to learn and to improve and to practice your speaking, and it's not a bad idea. Just choose actors that speak well. Mustafa says, "Hey Mustafa, I was speaking without any confidence until I found Ariel, in which I have kept listening and listening on and on. I've even slept during listening to some stories at times, but it was really worth it. It's very true, the point you have to focus on. Thank you so much." Thank you, Mustafa. So you can try it while you're sleeping. I don't know. Some people think that works. I don't think so, but you can always try it. Okay, common question. This next one. Very common, but I'll answer it again. What kind of book should we read? What kind of book should we read to improve our English? Real books. What do I mean by what's a real book? Not textbooks. Not textbooks. A real book means a book written for native speakers, or very similar to a book written for native speakers. For example, novels. 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 What's a novel? A novel's just a long storybook, right? Let's say you're a little bit advanced. You could read novels by Ernest Hemingway, for example, a famous American writer. You could read several books by Hemingway. That's a bit advanced, but you could do it if you were at that level. If you're not at that level, you could read more novels for young adults, or even for children. Something like Willy Wonka, which is British, I believe. But still, you get the idea, right? Or Hardy Boys books. Those are old books. There's a big series of them. I read them when I was a kid, and they're for American children. Goosebumps books. I've mentioned those before. Those are for kids. I'm not sure if those are American or British, but it doesn't matter. It's the same language, guys. So you could read the Goosebumps books also. They're for kids. They're kind of scary, but not too scary because they're for children and there's a huge series. There are lots and lots and lots of those books. So anything like that. Any kind of novels. Or you could also do nonfiction. Some people prefer nonfiction. Like, now, when I was younger, I read more fiction. Now I tend to read more nonfiction. So nonfiction, that's just, true information. If you're interested in astronomy, you could read Stephen Hawking books, or any popular astronomy books, not scientific. Just books for normal people, written by scientists. Or you could, read books about business. You could read biographies. Those are nonfiction. So you could read the life stories of famous people. You could read books about history, anything like that.